Hey, this is Sabrina Monarch of Monarch Astrology and Magic of the Spheres podcast. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about the full moon eclipse that's happening on October 17th, 2024. Let me show you the chart real quick so we can be on the same page. We have a full moon. The sun is at 24 degrees Libra, exactly conjunct goddess asteroid Juno. Juno has a lot to do with soul contracts and strong partnerships, which is really echoing a very Libran theme, being that this is a sign of relationship. And then the full moon is in Aries, conjunct Chiron. And of course, the nodes are in Aries and Libra. So this is an eclipse. And we also have Pluto at the 29th degree of Capricorn squaring the lunation along with Mars in Cancer. So we have a Pluto-Mars opposition that's building and growing and is squaring the full moon. So really actually quite an emotionally sharp lunation that we're looking at here. And I wanted to really explore this angle of the baby, right? The baby of the zodiac, Aries, and the experience of infancy and its emotional overwhelm and emotional urgency. And how by the time we get to Libra, we are very refined in our communication skill sets and relational skills. But the Aries experience is a little bit more brute, if you will. And then it's also known to be the baby of the zodiac. So you could think of, crying out with need, but not knowing how to use your words. And that is like the really just obvious way of putting it. But when I see the sun conjunct Juno opposite moon Chiron in Aries, the download that I really get about it, is where in our relationship dynamics are there projections or expectations around being cared for or taken care of? And where is this connecting to a really early or young part of us? By the way, it's reasonable to expect to be taken care of in relationship. But there's subtleties and nuances within that because there's a degree of care that might be a standard in relationships. And then there's also the reality or the truth of we're on our own journeys and we have responsibility for ourselves. We each do. And we cannot ultimately project responsibility for our own individuation journey onto another person, nor can another person do that with us. But that is where we get kind of themes of dependency or codependency within relationship. It's where we look for the other to hold something for us, right? Or with us that we don't want to be with ourselves. And this creates relational entanglements and conflict within relationship, but I think may also be the things that are really thematically erupting during this eclipse cycle is what are the expectations of care inside of relationships? And is there something that's really being reworked or understood at a deeper level? So that's the big picture download. A few things that I can add or say around that. I recently was reading or listening to the audiobook of The Eden Project by James Hollis. Amazing work. But it's about the pursuit, essentially, of a return to an original essence within ourselves, which is not just, you could look at it as this concept of your higher self or you, who you are completely before you get conditioned by culture or by family, right? Like your pure, unadulterated, unfiltered essence before parts of you, before you had soul loss or trauma or adapted to your environment, just who you were. But if you take that back even further, it's you in connection with source, you in connection with God, with everything before you were born as a separate, distinct individual, which is at once the adventure that we're here for, but also um, there's a pain or a longing to it. It's like we separated from the oneness, and how exciting, how thrilling to be an individual, but also it hurts to not be home. It hurts to not be in that connection. And then in our lives, we look for these magical experiences or the magical other to return us to that state of union and fulfillment. And this forms relational projections where we feel that other people will magically complete us, other people will magically heal our deepest existential loneliness, etc. Right? And of course, we're here also to engage and have relationships. And inside of relationships, we're learning a set of, we're learning through the other, we're learning through the mirror. We have soul contracts. We have people that we're here to have specific lessons with or to create with in specific ways. But the question inside of that we awaken to is, and this is something that, James Hollis talks about in this book, is just where we've projected our own individuation journey onto the other. The way that he was talking about it in the book, and so I'm paraphrasing from memory, but let's go back to, early childhood or infancy and say, like, to look at your parents as your first guardians into this world, and the people that are making your landing on earth as a distinct individual a little softer or a little easier. That when you cry, when you're hungry, when you need something, they come running to your aid. And even that isn't perfect. It depends on what your childhood was like and whatnot. But even a well-meaning parent might struggle with, why is this baby fussing? What do they need? Why are they so upset? I thought they needed to be held. I thought they needed to eat, but what are they still upset about? And the parent is tired. They're losing energy. They haven't gotten a lot of sleep. They're frustrated. It's grating to hear the baby keep crying. There's a general frustration in the air between both of them. What do you need? Right? And like, why can't I make you happy? And also the baby, I'm still upset even though you're attending to me. Right? So you just have this like urgency and this need, and nothing is really happening, as opposed to when the need is soothed and there's that like nervous system co-regulation that feels really sweet and bonding. But to think about that irritability without relief, right? This moon, Chiron, and Aries experience, that itch that we can't scratch, this thing that we're searching for somehow in life, in the other. I wonder if some of the situations, the dynamics that are happening in our lives at the moment during this eclipse reveal to us certain themes around where we fear doing things by ourselves, where we fear being alone, where there's an initiation before us and we wish someone would hold our hands through it, or maybe someone else is doing that and wanting us to help them through an initiation, and we're not so sure that it's ours to help them with, or there's something about the dynamic, something about the question of, is this ours or is this yours? Is this ours or is this mine? Like very self versus other kind of situations arising during this eclipse. The Pluto and Capricorn, Mars and Cancer opposition, I think adds more of this complex around responsibility and power. Responsibility and power being Pluto and Capricorn, right? Who's the authority figure? Who's the parental figure in the dynamic? And then Mars and Cancer, again, this kind of urgency around care or neglect, or are my needs being met or not? And so having this cardinal across, including the lunation, these are all very developmental themes, all very related to like family or first family or social conditioning and familial conditioning. But all kind of orbiting around these themes around, do we feel cared for? Are we alone? Is there something coming up in our lives where we feel scared to do something by ourselves, or we don't exactly know how it's going to work out, or we haven't been in this situation before? And what relational dynamics have constellated to push us out of the nest, right? Or to guide us into an experience, and just feeling through that dynamic of the social things that come up around need, an urgent need, like the Aries kind of baby-like need. So again, in a situation in like crisis or something, you might have a person rushing to another person's aid, or there might be no one there, right? Or if you are genuinely at a place of profound need and you reach out, the call, the signal for help, maybe you're met, right? Maybe there's something about you actually letting that signal out and letting yourself be seen there and letting yourself be cared for there. And there may be places where habitually you've called out for need. And the moment the tide is turning, where you're actually ready to take that next step by yourself, that maybe the support you expected was going to be there is not available for some reason or has left, right? And you see yourself before with this initiation before you, and seemingly it's yours to walk. You'll have to be more honest with yourself or introspective about, is this thing that you're being called to yours and yours alone? Is it a like co-creational relational dynamic that involves multiple people? Or is it your own private initiation journey, your own very personal path to walk? Chiron and the moon suggest that might be painful, but it might also be really healing. When we find our own way in places where it is truly a solo journey or something that is for us to retrieve, something for us to accomplish more or less alone, that can build self-trust, that can build confidence, that can feel like a certain type of rite of passage or maturation. So consider all of these things I've been throwing out here, what's going on in your life. And if you're being called into some, what the initiation of the eclipse cycle is for you. I don't know if I mentioned this because I had a few recording tries before this, but I didn't take notes so much for this. I decided to just kind of freestyle and think out loud on video, which is something I pretty much never do because I'm not comfortable with it. I'm comfortable having my set of notes. But lately during this eclipse season, my creativity, I've felt like I'm like throwing things at the note board and I'm trying to put something together and I'm like, crumpling up the paper and throwing it into a trash bin and it's getting a bunch of, a pile of crumpled up ideas. So I figured it was time to just trust, take the leap, think out loud, and make a video and put it out into the world. This may not be my last word on the full moon eclipse in Aries, but I did just want to throw this idea out there about the baby of the zodiac. And what if you take that a little bit more literally, that energy of crying out for need and not necessarily being at that place of being further along in the journey to, of that development to be able to more maturely express that need. I literally had, I think it happened in maybe 2 dreams recently. I've been tracking my dreams and dream journaling where there were scenes where me or another character like had to say something but didn't really know how to say it. And so just had to kind of sloppily try. And it's like, this is coming out immature. This is coming out a little bit messy, but this is all I know how to do. And I think sometimes the Aries experience is like that. It's not like the opposite Libra, which can be so much more harmonious and knows how to make good appearances and know how to make things flow and has this intellectual finesse, this communication finesse. Like Aries might just shoot from the hip a little bit or just kind of messily, chaotically just go for it, just do it. Like there's a boldness actually that people end up finding charming because it's authentic. But inside of relationship, it's actually really vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be upset, to feel like something is wrong, and to not really know how to talk about it because you don't fully understand what's happening yet, or you don't really have your footing all the way. And you could try to keep up appearances and just act normal or do the right thing, or you could sloppily say the thing that's coming up for you, which is kind of like that experience of being a baby and having a need and not knowing what to do except cry or scream. And if you look at situations through that lens of like, where is the inner infant? Where is the inner baby? People, no matter how old they are, don't not have that part of themselves. So there can be moments inside of relationship where one or both parties is very young. They're acting young, they're fumbling a little bit. And sometimes the impulse or like the relational dynamics that constellate around that create a caretaking dynamic. It's like, you're off right now, you need my help, you need my advice, you need my holding, or that's being elicited, that's being asked for, know how to hold me right when I'm in crisis, or get away from me. Like, I'm upset, I'm pushing you away when I'm in crisis. Like, there's ways that we create social dynamics around that urgent emotional part of us that just doesn't know what to do. And I think that that material is definitely possibly coming up during this eclipse cycle. And there is something that's being surfaced for us to see and understand about what our needs are, how we can take greater responsibility for those needs, and also how we can renegotiate our relationship contracts around needs, right? To not project needs where they do not need to be projected, to take responsibility where responsibility needs to be taken. And that's a lot to untangle, by the way, inside of relational dynamics. Um, but that kind of deeper material is surfacing. And when this is happening in an immature way, there's a lot of blame, Capricorn. You should, or like, you're bad because you didn't, or like that kind of energy comes up. Um, or there's like a passive aggressiveness, Mars and Cancer. You should know what I need. You should know what I want, silent treatment kind of stuff. Or we're able to kind of sort through what's happening, come to the table, express as best as we can. But chances are there may be some material that's coming up that is inherently confusing or has that, like, I don't know, I've never been in this situation before kind of energy to it, Moon and Aries, or I'm really hot-headed, I don't know how to think clearly right now, energy, Aries. So we might be feeling irritable, we might be feeling impatient, other people may be feeling that way. Um, some balance here between grace, Libra, and the willingness for things to be a little bit messy, Aries. Um, I think that's what I have for you about the eclipse. Let me know in the comments how you liked my off the cuff, thinking out loud forecast. Um, what resonated with you, what you're taking away from it. I hope my ability to write and organize my thoughts comes back online. I'm sure it will. But I'm in the sauce. I'm lost in the sauce with you. And I hope this was helpful.